a sense of meaning. The Gallup poll says that people who feel like they are what's the word? Because I want to use the actual word, engaged with their coworkers at work are 147% more productive than people who don't. Now, I don't know how they got that 147%, but that's significant. And yet engagement is something that we're losing on a regular basis. We have become efficient with communication, but not effective. Would you agree? Right? So two things, and this is far down. Yeah,
right?
I've got my contacts
right?
in, and it's still far down. So what are we missing, right? One of the things that I always talk about with people, and it's just something that I've coined, a term I've coined. However, it may be something that I heard once before, somebody coined it before, I don't know. But here it is that we have lost the ability to see a person's soul, right? Not that you can actually see a soul, but what are we missing? We have lost the ability to see a soul. This is why so much of our talking and our platforms on social media are so dissatisfying, because we will talk and loudly, but we are not really heard. We've just become a part of a noise now where everybody else wants to speak loudly too. Everybody's yelling at the top of their lungs, and nobody's really listening. And the second thing I think we're having problems with is the ability to have discernment. Discernment, look at that, right? Discernment is described as the ability to judge. And the word judge in and of itself has become a nasty word, but judgment is incredibly important. To be able to judge what's going on, what's happening. So today I want to give you guys some points, some tips to kind of just bring you around. You see, the art of communication, it is an art. Some of us have more natural abilities towards it, but no matter what, it's still something that needs to be practiced, and you can have a lot of growth just through practice. So if you say, well, I'm not much of a communicator, Anita, well, that's okay. There's still a lot of things that you can learn. So first off, one of the things that I think is really important is for us to recognize that there is a message behind the message. There is always a message behind the message, and rarely do we want to speak to the first message, but we want to speak to the second message. What is actually going on? What is the state and what is the context of what's happening at any given time, right? What is the message behind the message? In the scenario that I was telling you about at the beginning, where suddenly two very large men are standing up and they're posturing and they're getting as tall as they can and they're filling out their chests and oh good God, what's going to happen next, right? Was it about the bike? No, it wasn't about the bike. It wasn't about the bike. And even though in that moment I had to do something that I rarely ever do, which was turn on a battle axe voice and say, get out of the house! Now you're taking a walk! Right? That sort of thing. I got my sweetheart out of the house. Because I thought, well, if we get to fisticuffs, that's, I'm going to be completely ineffective on that one. I'll try, though. I'll come out with a black eye. I'm pretty sure about that, but I'm going to try, right? Got him out of the house, told the father, not sure what this is about. You guys sit still. I'm going to go this way, right? And so the question became when I found him, because I sent him out. It was, it's 20 degrees. It's November in Maryland. And sent him out and found him. And I said, what's going on? What's happening here? Right? Oh, first it's the bike. It's the bike. No, it's the bicycle. I'm like, honey, we're getting on a plane tomorrow. It's not like you can ride the bicycle from Maryland to California. This is not what's happening. What's really going on? What's bothering you right now? And as we had the opportunity to talk, and here's something that I want to talk to you guys about, is to be able to walk with someone. And I don't mean physically, although actually physically walking with people when they're in trouble and they're in trauma is very good, because especially men can open up and talk better when they're walking. Don't know why, but okay. So we are walking out in a little bit. Here's what ended up being the problem. That bike represented something. these traumatic experiences happened when he was in high school. And because of the difficulty of this debacle that happened, the family was selling things left and right to pay for legal expenses. The family sold much of not only the father's belongings and not only the parents, the grandparents' belongings, but the kids' belongings too. A bicycle had been sold, right? It wasn't even this bicycle. That bicycle was the one that he thought he still had. But as time went by, that got sold too. And he was at a place where he was experiencing loss. Loss of his father, loss of so many things that had mattered to him, and even material loss that he equated to relationship. And there was the message behind the message. It had nothing to do with the bike. It had to do with those moments, those deep, deep, dark places of loss. If we had stayed on the bike, we probably would have had an old man and a middle-aged man fighting it out, and literally probably maybe had to call the cops. I don't know what happened. Good God, I had no idea if we had stayed on the process of the bike. But we have to walk with people through times when we don't see what's happening, but we know something's up, right? Sometimes you know the answer. Do you know what I'm talking about? Sometimes people come in and they say, this happened, that happened, and you're like, well, here's the reason. And you're thinking in your head, well, it's because you did X, Y, Z, and you started something in motion, right? But how does that work when we start to tell people about that, right?
Defensive.
We need to get there. We need to get there. And here's the thing, just because you know it doesn't mean it's the right time to say it. Just because you know it doesn't mean it's the right time to say it. So we physically and metaphorically walked, and I walked with him through what that loss of that bike meant, right? And we came to a place where I said, can you forgive your father for all the loss that has happened in your life? Can you forgive him because he is very limited and he still doesn't get it? He still doesn't understand the devastation. He saw it, doesn't feel it. He doesn't get it, and he didn't, right? Can you forgive him? And he said, I'll do my best. And we walked back in, and he apologized for that moment. He did his best, and we made it back to California without too much trouble. You know, we had that little bit, but it was it. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about to you guys is just the message behind the message. Walking with people through their pain before you give them the message that they need to hear. Because I did talk to my sweetheart too and say, this is not about a bike, and you owe your father an apology. You owe that man who caused you so much trouble back then. You owe him an apology for tonight, because he didn't deserve that, right? But I could not say that until he had been fully heard and his soul was seen.
Until his soul was right.
Seen. You see the soul, you know, and I know that that's kind of out there sounding, but I think if you, as women, because in a room full of women who have a lot of gray matter, or it's white matter in our brains, we have a lot of connectivity in our brains, we have a lot of ability to have emotional memory and stuff like that. I think that we have the ability to do this so much more. So we look to metaphorically see the soul before we give any prescription. It's a diagnostic before prescription, right? If you prescribe too early, you've got a problem. You have to diagnose, okay? So that's kind of where we want to go with that. First thing. Second thing, what I want to talk about is these are going to be some really simplistic tips that I want to be able to give to you with words. Now, I've just gotten through telling you that sometimes the message isn't the message, right? And sometimes the words aren't the words. But words do mean things. Words do mean things, and our own words can be an enormous help, or it can be an enormous hindrance. So, can I give you guys a little bit of help here? Because I hear it, I see it all the time, where we're operating on this level with our words, and we should be operating on this level, depth, right? I see people all the time, and I have a saying where I'll say, some people are a mile wide and a teaspoon deep, right? And that's a And our culture right now is encouraging mile wide, teaspoon deep. But the truth of the matter is the people who go deep are the ones who will have the more effective life, the happier life, because people who are connected are happier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So depth. And depth starts with being very careful with our words, right? So I'm going to give you a couple of them. And some of them are going to be obvious, or at least to me, I don't know. I've been living in one world, and I'm wondering if it's, you know how sometimes you're in a world and it seems so normal to you, but then when you get out of the rest of the world, maybe people haven't heard what you've heard.
Yeah.
Right. So how many of you are aware that the word but should be taken out of your vocabulary? Get it out of the vocabulary, right? This is an ask. No, I'm kidding. That's not what I'm talking about. Sorry about that. However, it's true, right? I love you, but you have to clean your room, right? I love you, but it makes me crazy when you leave your socks on the floor. That is true. I love you, but, or you're a great employee, but you're a really nice person, but. So what's the word, guys? Do you know the word? And. It does work. I tell you what, I do it all the time, and people, it's kind of funny, because this is like secret weapons, guys, right? I think you're a fabulous human being, and I'd love to see you work on this. I think you've got some great talents here, and I'd love to see you working on these talents over here. And, right? And just kind of slide it in there. It's not an and, right? You're great and, like we do with our butts, right? You're wonderful, da-da-da-da, and da-da-da-da, right? So it even has to do with the delivery. And you also know about shoulds, right? Okay, nobody wants to be should on. Let's not do it. However, what happens is that we say, okay, you're not supposed to say the word should. But unlike the word but, we don't get another word. At least with but, we go, oh, I replace it with and. Got it. Check the box. I know what to do on that. I don't say but, I say and, but everybody says don't say should. What do I say? Right? What do I say? So there's a lot of different ways that you can go with this, but one of the things I like to say would be, have you ever considered? Have you ever thought of? Right? Now, here's a problem that we know about this, women. As soon as I say, have you ever considered, I don't get to say, you should. And when I say you should, it's much more direct. It's basically, this should be the thing. And when I say, have you ever considered the thing, that gives them the opportunity to say, nah, no thanks. Right? However, this is the thing. We need to let them make their own decisions. And so if they say no, or if they say it's not viable, we have to accept that. We have to accept that. Here's a little secret I'm going to tell you. Most of the time they will say, nope, not that. That's not going to work. That's no good. Not going to happen. And I'll say, all right, that's fine. Gosh, it's unfortunate. I was kind of thinking, but okay. You know what happens afterwards? They do. They do. I mean, not all the time, but 7 times out of 10, they'll let it sink in. Here's another thing. We give the person the dignity of letting it seep within their own souls. Again, taking it deep in the soul instead of you should. You plant the seed, you let it meander through, and they make the decision. That also creates a much more mature human being. Because if we always say should, then they're just doing what we're told, and that's not taking their own adulthood. There's a lot of adults out there that are still behaving like around 14 years old. You guys see it all the time, right? And a lot of that has to do with they never accepted their own adulthood. Maybe they were never given the permission by their parents to take on their own adulthood. And now they are adults and they've never received that permission. You, when your communication may be the first time someone has given them the right, the honor of taking on their own adulthood, and letting them have the consequences or the joys one way or another in being with them. Okay? All right. Third thing I want to talk to you all about. It is okay to pretend like you didn't get it. Guys, this is one of my favorites. It happens all the time. It's okay to pretend like you're ignorant. It's wonderful. I have a client right now. She started out with business, and now we've gone to life. She's a stepmom, and she has stepkids that have gone through a lot of trauma as well. Having a mother who's got borderline personality, things like that. There's a lot of drama and trouble in the house, a lot of it. And the children are acting out at her home because of all of the trauma that they've gone through, and it's ugly. It's really difficult. So she was describing to me a couple of months ago a situation that came about where the children, they were going to take the children to some type of a sporting event. And they were on a budget. So they were telling the children, okay, we're paying for the tickets, we're gonna go in, it's gonna be great, we're gonna be bringing our own waters, we're gonna be bringing our own this, that, and the other thing. We're not going to spend money at the concession stand. We're gonna, so we're gonna be bringing our own waters in, but just know we're not spending our money at the concession stand. One of the kids right off the bat says, well, what if we get hungry? And she'd already had a hard day, and she lost it. Great. You don't appreciate, we're trying to do this, and all you think about is this, and bam, it flies out. So she didn't love the way she had responded. She was tired. And by the way, guys, this takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. But she had responded poorly. She knew it. But she's like, I don't know what to do. He comes off with this, right? I am not going to tell her that, no, you misread the situation. I'm sure she read the situation just fine. I'm sure she read the situation just fine. But what I did ask her to do was I said, why'd you have to act like you knew what he was doing? She's like, excuse me? I said, how's this scenario? Well, what if we get hungry? And you say, great idea. I'm so glad you brought that up. Good thinking, man. This is what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to make sure everybody eats before that. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, everybody on board. Yay for you. Good job, guy. She sits on the side and she's like, and she's like, well, doggone, I think that might have worked. Right? So, ignorance can be used. Or the idea that it is ignorant. Just because somebody throws something down doesn't mean you have to pick it up, right? A depth to our decisions, a thoughtfulness to it. This takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. And I think one of the last things that I want to mention to you ladies is for you, because I've been talking now about how you are to work within helping other people walk through their own traumas, walk through their own pain. How you've helped them by speaking words that are much more life-giving, that open the mind up. By the way, when you say, have you considered, instead of you should, do you realize that the brain hears, have you considered, and what the brain does is goes, it opens. You should, the brain closes. Have you considered, the brain opens. And so these are tactics and tools that we use on behalf of others. But here's one that I want to give for you, because I'm also very aware that as we work to bring life and hope to people, to give them that sense of connectedness, we're also barraged on a regular basis with people who are whether on purpose or without thought, are sucking the life out of us. Accusations that aren't true. Being given diminutive behavior, right? Being told things, especially women. And of course, as we have been grown up, most of us have learned to be seen and not heard, etc. And so we, just be nice, just be sweet. suck it up, buttercup, right? And in some ways, I always feel like that when that happens, sometimes if we do the suck it up sort of thing, we only do it for a short period of time so that we can find a better moment to address it. But I don't really know that this suck it up thing is a really good idea, and it's really what we've been told. And so here's just one phrase I want to give you. If there is ever a time when you are being wrongly accused, falsely accused, or you are being told something, you're ugly, you're old, you're fat, you're stupid, anything in that sense, and you can teach this to your children, right? And it could be you're a loser, you're whatever it is. And those are direct ones. Sometimes they're somewhat indirect. Sometimes you just say, I don't know why that sentence felt bad, but wow, right? Where our minds can't even wrap around what it was, but our spirits know it's wrong. Here's the wording I want you guys to get. With all calmness, you simply say this: I reject that. I reject that. You don't have to do it with heat. As a matter of fact, please try not to do it with heat. But you can say, I reject that, and you walk away. There is nothing that needs to be done. And for yourself, what you have done, literally, because as the words come at you, and you all know that words are worse than regular wounds, right? As the words come at you, that is a counterattack this way. Against the words, not necessarily against the person, right? But against the words. And this is something that I teach people all the time. Not just women, men too, but women need it a little bit more because of the fact that we take things in. I reject that. And you walk away. You stop the conversation, you walk away. Please remember that, because there's so many times when we get in these places and they feel so bad, and that's all we need to do. If you know you don't need to own that, they threw it down, you do not need to pick that up. I reject that. So the point, and there's several people in this room, there's a lot of coaches in this room, grief coaching, life coaching, business coaching, all of that. And this is awesome because we need this. Each one of us coaches has a different desire for their life, right? And what their purpose. What do I bring to people? And so for me, one of the things that I wanted to bring is I want to bring success, and I want to bring peace and happiness to people by helping them to do the right thing and to have deep and meaningful lives. So I'm hoping that in some of the tools and tips that I've given you guys today, that will help you just even for the smallest moment to be able to bring something to the rest of your life that will make a difference to you. I'm so thankful that you guys have given me the opportunity to talk today. Hope it's been helpful, and I'm really thankful for 3 years here. This is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.